لله والحمد لله شكرا لله والحمد لله.
Muslim community, Eid Mubarak, as the Muslim community bring to an end a month of intense fasting. We wish you well, and we pray that Subhanahu wa Ta'ala will continue to bless the whole of Trinidad and Tobago, and that we would be able to find some sort of peace within ourselves. While ironically we cannot find peace within Trinidad and Tobago as a result of the failure of Fitzgerald Hines and the Keith Rowley administration. So let me first welcome our visitors regionally, locally, internationally. I know it has been a while since you heard from us. We allowed the Easter to take place, and of course, Tuesday I was supposed to be here, but a bit under the weather with a stuffy nose and a running nose. Nevertheless, it has since more or less under control with the medicine which I continue to take, and that is not pharmaceutical, that's Bush. And take note, it's not from Trevor Says, okay? Just take note. But of course, we are here and we want to welcome you back. We want to welcome you back. Crime. Crime has created such an impact on our community, and it's as a result of a number of issues. But first of all, let me just look at a story here which states businessmen feel helpless, call for anti-crime strategies. Well, you see, I want to tell the businessmen and them something here this evening. You know. I want to tell the businessmen something, but let me just run through the story a little bit so you get the gist of what the business chamber speaks of. So it says, TNT is likely to see an exodus of business people if the government failed to meet with stakeholders to address the crime scourge. This is a view of President of the Greater San Fernando Chamber of Commerce, Kiel Singh, as he responds to Minister of National Security Fitzgerald Hines' statement that generating a crime plan was not the minister's responsibility. Several heads of business chamber were contacted by Guardian Media, all of whom called on the National Security Council to hold meeting and hammer out anti-crime strategies. Singh said business people were easy targets, particularly those small and medium business owners who could not afford armed security guards. He said, "We heard from the Commissioner of Police about reducing crime by June, but while we wait on that, the criminals are taking serious advantage of us." Let me just hold up there a little bit. So Singh point out two key factors here. And one, he stated that he is responding to the Minister of National Security, Fitzgerald Hines' statement when Hines tells this country that formulating a crime plan is not the minister's responsibility to generate a crime plan. That is one. And two, he speaks of Earl Christopher that tell this country by June we should have a reduction in serious crime. So as it states, he is looking and hoping and pleading with the National Security Council, to hammer out their differences or hammer out an anti-crime strategy. Now, an anti-crime strategy, ladies and gentlemen, is the same as an anti-crime plan. Let me just get that straight. So putting an anti-crime plan in place is putting an anti-crime strategy in place. It's the same thing. So, Mr. Singh responded to Hines when Hines said that it's not his responsibility to generate a crime plan. Well, I agree with Hines, you know. I want to agree with Hines because if every ministry that Hines passed through since the inception of Patrick Manning And Heinz was a failure. Every ministry that they place, they shuffle Heinz like a deck of cards. And don't matter how they shuffle Heinz as a deck of cards, any ministry end up in, he still end up the joker. It seems as though that Heinz pack, the pack that they shuffle Heinz from, is 52 jokers in that pack. So anyway they pull him out, and any ministry that he end up in, he is still a joker. So I agree that it's not Heinz's responsibility to formulate a crime plan. Heinz's responsibility is to sit in the parliament and sleep on himself, dribble when he had time, put a bib round his neck might be better, because it seems as though Heinz spent more time sleeping in parliament than bringing any meaningful piece of amendment that would be able to assist the country with this crime surge that is happening as I speak. While on my way up, we hook up in some traffic jam. And while we hook up in that traffic jam, you could see on social media how much people continue to lose their life as a result of Heinz failure. Ola Christopher, the Commissioner of Police, tell us that by June, we will have a reduction. She went as far as to tell us the amount of killing that we're seeing is the storm before the calm. But it seems as though where the Commissioner of Police sits, it seems as though that they have since reneged on prayers to fix the crime situation. And they renege on prayers to fix the crime situation because it seems as though that they really cannot find some of the bishops who represent certain faith in this country, because the bishops and them seems to be more politician than more bishop. So you will see some of these bishops on social media and talking about the opposition this and the opposition that. But you would see these same bishops will not come out publicly and condemn this idiotic statement that Heinz just made to us, that is not his responsibility to formulate a crime strategy. They will not come out and condemn that. You see, some of these bishops, they continue to get blessing from the public purse. It's not blessing from God, it's blessing from the public purse. Blessing from the Keith Rowley administration. So they tend to more ride the bandwagon of the PNM and more tend to support all the ideologies of the PNM, whether it makes sense to them or not, whether it helps the country to go forward or not, whether it reduces crime or not. They tend to support the PNM rather than support the people of this country. And while on that, just as how some of these church people want to be politicians, in the same vein, it has some of these politicians who want to be church people. So it works both ways, There is some politician who wants to be right up. Whether it is in the archdiocese or whether it's in the top of the Christian faith. But some politicians want to be more inclined to deal with religious matters instead of dealing with political matters. And some religious leader inclined more to deal with political matters more than dealing with religious matters. So we have a conflict on both sides. But that's a discussion for another time, because I go deal with that when the time is right. Don't feel I ain't here, ain't seen and listening. I will deal with situation when the time is right. So Ola Christopher, it seems as though that prayer is not working. So we come up with a new initiative by June. But my problem with that is I wonder if it will still have people to kill in this country when June come. That's my problem. Because the rate and the way in which things going now, I am wondering if it will have people to kill by June. So let's look at some statistics. There have been a total of 180 murders thus far. And this statistic that they're quoting from, this is last week. I ain't talking about everybody who get licked up this week. This is last week information. So they give a breakdown. Murder during the period, first at the first 23, to the 19th of the 4th 23, in the 9 police divisions. Northeastern Division, we had 33. Northern Division, we have 52. Southern Division, we have 23. Central Division, we have 21. Eastern Division, we have 13. Western Division, we have 12. Port of Spain Division, we have 11. Southwestern Division, where I live, we have 11. And Tobago, we have 4. Totaling 180. There were 21 double murders. 9 occur in the Northern Division. 5 in the Northeastern Division. 3 in the Southern Division. 2 occur in Port of Spain Division. 1 in Central Division. And 1 in Eastern Division. There were 3 triple murders, with 2 taking place within the Northern Division, which accounted for 52 of the 180 murders for 2023. 1 in Central Division, which has the 3rd highest murder total by divisions. Out of the 180 murders recorded for the year back from the period as I quote before, 156 were committed with firearms. Now I wanted to take cognizance that this did not say that 156 were committed with assault rifle. So we had this big CARICOM symposium where we had heads from the region came to have a discussion on crime, whether it's by the request or whether it's by the organization or whether it is by our Prime Minister, it occurred. And coming out of all these talks, we have seen where a decision was taken to put a ban on what is already banned in Trinidad and Tobago. This is not Carib Tokyo. This is not Deltones. This is not Solo Hamanites. This ban that are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, is to ban what is already banned in our constitution or in our laws.
The media, when the UNC had a press conference, I actually heard a reporter asking if it's not wise to begin the conversation instead of trying to say, well, this is a real silly thing. what I is always trying to get here is that the media is part and parcel of all this stupidness. Now you started off with this Heinz. I don't really take on Heinz at all, you know, because it seems as though if Rowley puts a very intelligent person like what this Armour was before he put on that jersey, like what that president, the former sleeping lady, she was supposed to be this big,
Right. Yeah, right.
person. And they just get dumb, dotish, and stupid under that prime minister. So, in a sense, the prime minister might be right. Removing the security minister ain't gonna make no sense because really and truly, the dotishness starting from him.
And you are quite right, my brother. You see, and I comment there just now. I comment back to that just now. So, coming out of this whole synopsis, a decision was taken to ban what is already banned here. Because assault rifles is already banned in our jurisdiction. I have attorney at law Kiel Tacklalsingh will be joining me in a bit. And we'll get back into that. But the fact remains is that this is already this big PR that we conduct and we continue to conduct in relation to this big symposium and this big discussion. My question is, what this big discussion or this symposium that took place a couple of days ago, what would it do to reduce the crime statistics in our jurisdiction? That is where my problem lies, because you see, banning assault rifle, which is already banned, that is not the solution to the problem that we are faced with. We are faced with a situation where citizens in this country have since become not only afraid of what is happening, but they have barricaded themselves within the privacy of their homes. And to the end of that, ladies and gentlemen, we are seeing where the element of criminality has intensified their operations. That while you believe that you are secured within the precincts of your home by burglar proofs and CCTV cameras and locks and hinges and so on, and even getting some of the most secured, expensive doors and windows that is on the market, it shows that you are still not secure in your home because your home have since been invaded by the element. And what would the National Security Minister, what would the Prime Minister, and I agree with the Prime Minister, I agree that removing the National Security Minister would not solve the problem. I agree. I am agreeing with the Prime Minister here tonight. I am saying removing Heinz would not solve the problem, ladies and gentlemen. Heinz not coming up with a strategy, with a strategic plan to fight the criminal element. That too is not the problem. The National Security Council, which is chaired by Keith Rowley. Keith Rowley had all kind of meeting with the National Security Council. When was time for them to get rid of Griffith? So the business chamber asking Rowley to convene a National Security Council meeting to deal and to hammer out the crime issue. I am saying to the business chamber in this country that you have also contributed to the problem that we now face. We have had Richie Sukai, who is now a senator and the minister in the Ministry of Works and Transport, I believe, rating up the government, with the government lack of vision, lack of plan, lack of policy to help save the business sector in this country. But we are seeing the results of that. We are seeing that once you support the wrongdoing of the PNM, there is a position for you. So we have seen, ladies and gentlemen, that the business chambers in this country, we have called on the business chamber in this country to come out and stand up against what is happening. You see any of them? You have seen any of these chambers coming out to stand up to voice the dissatisfaction with the policies of the Keith Rowley administration? You have not seen any one of these chambers coming out and stand up. You will more find the chambers congratulating Richie Sukai to his new position. And I have no problem with Richie Sukai in his new position, Don't get me wrong. But my problem is when you stand up with the PNM and support the wrongdoing of the PNM, and then I see you end up in a position in the PNM. That is where my problem lies. So it tells me that you had no credibility. It tells me that you did not have the interests of the chamber that you represent at heart. It tells me that you couldn't care 1 pint of urine. What happened to the small and micro businesses in this country once there is a position available to you? So the business chamber, they are now crying out. And we will test the business chamber, We will test the business chamber in the next couple of weeks. We will test the business chamber. My attorney, Kiel Tacklalsingh, penned a letter on my behalf today to send for the Commissioner of Police. And the only reason why we didn't deliver that letter today is because under the Summary Offences Act, it states that not more than 14 days and not less than 48 hours. And that document that I will drop off on Monday down at the police administration building and a respective station today would make it 15 days. And therefore submitting it today would have given the police the right not to treat with it because it didn't fall within the stipulated time frame that the Summary Offensive Act speaks of. But we will test the business chamber in this country. We will test the business chamber because for far too long in this country, we have seen the business chamber, the church. We have seen some Monday. We have seen some Jamaat. We have seen some of these individuals stand up and support the wrongdoing of the government. We witnessed that. We saw Archbishop this and Archbishop that and Archbishop whatever. We have seen pundit this and pundit that. We have seen Imam this and Imam that. We have seen pastor this and pastor that. we have seen the way in which they stand up and support the wrongdoing of this government. We have seen the Judith Jones report that speaks of the behavior of high-ranking officials with the abuse of children by state-run homes. And today, my question to you, Trinidad and Tobago, is which one of the business chamber, which one of the mandate, which one of the mosque, which one within the archdiocese, which pastor stand up and condemn the behavior of what is happening within this children home? You tell me which one. Tell me. But now the business chamber crying. You know why they're crying now? Because they realize that supporting Rowley cannot make them safe. They realize that standing up with Rowley would not secure their business. They realize that supporting Hines would not protect their life and livelihood. And that is why today we are seeing, as I quote from the statistics earlier, the numbers of murders and serious crime. And you have Fitzgerald Hines, who I consider the biggest idiot to sit in an office, in a ministry, telling you that it's not his job to generate any crime plan to save your life. And then you have the bigger idiot standing up and tell you that removing the Minister of National Security would not solve the problem. And I agree. I agree. Moving Hines would not solve the problem. To solve the problem, you have to move Keith Rowley and the whole team. That is how you will solve the problem. But when you move Keith Rowley and the team, you better make sure that when we install our next government, that we ain't had the same problem that we have under Keith Rowley and the team. That is our life for our next time. That is our life for our next time, but hold on. Because you see, while on that, I want to say this. Holistically, all is not well in Trinidad and Tobago. All is not well. All is not well in this country. All is not well in the government. All is not well in the business chamber. All is not well within the trade union movement. All is not well within the opposition. All is not well in this country. And in this country, we have to fix the problem. We have to take the bull by its nose and fix the problem. And it matters not to me who vex. It matters not to me who disagree. But we have to fix the problem in this country. We cannot allow this country to suffer because of some ambitious politicians who do not have the interests of the country at heart. We cannot allow the country to suffer because of some people's ego. We cannot allow the country to go underwater. As I speak, this country, it's just the nose of this country that is above water. And let me tell you how you're getting a breath. You have to keep tiptoeing. And you have to keep bouncing. That is where we reach in the country. Because your nose is almost underwater. And when your nose is underwater, it calls for drastic and serious reform in this country in order to save Trinidad and Tobago. This is not a game. I heard one individual say today that politics is not a game and politics have consequences. But I want to say it plain and I want to say it clear that politics have consequences, but you must be prepared to stand the consequence for your action. Whether you're in government or whether you're in opposition, you must be prepared to stand the consequence for your action when you are in the political arena. You see, within the political arena, ladies and gentlemen, there isn't any place for games. Within the political arena, there is any place for trials and error. Within the political arena, you have to have in place people who are competent, capable, qualified to do the job. And if your job spec presents to you what you don't have, then you have to know that the job is bigger than you. And that is where we are in this country. So Fitzgerald Hines, removing him is not the issue. We have seen this government come up with crime plan and crime plan and crime plan and crime plan and meeting and strategy, and they support one shot one kill, and they support no bail for this, they support everything, they support, but they can't fix the problem. You know why? Because the job spec, the government is not qualified. The people that's holding office, they are not qualified to bring the relief and to bring to the table the strategies that is needed to fix the problem. And when you are a part of the problem, then you cannot be part of the solution. The government is part of the crime problem. I saw Foster Cummins had to stand up and defend himself, and telling you that the land in Couva, he acquired above board. And in the same story, he tried to convince you that he acquired that land before he was a minister. Why you have to defend? Why you have to defend? Why you always have yourself in a position where you have to defend some wrongdoing, some allegation? We have seen politicians in this country who have to constantly defend and defend and defend. We have seen politicians in this country who have to look for technicality in order to escape prison time. Why? Why you always have to defend? Foster Cummins have $4.4 million allegation in a venture credit union account. Why we have to always defend? Why politicians always have to defend themselves? Let me tell you something. We have to find, we have to build, we have to ensure that people who is charged with the responsibility to manage the government purse, there are people who is trustworthy, people who are competent, and people who have the interests of Trinidad and Tobago at heart. For too long, we have politicians who only have their own interests at heart. For too long, we have politicians who getting rich overnight. We have politicians for far too long whose pocket is bigger than themselves and bigger than any policy that they bring to the country. For too long, we have seen Camille Robinson Regis. I listened to the director of public prosecution. I wanted to play it today, but I ain't going to get into that today. I listened to the director quite carefully. And when I listened to Gaspard, and what he had to say, I formulate the way in which the political games are being played with politicians who should be in jail.
Somebody would have lost his hand as a result of a wounding, 2 years, 3 years, or a fine. That, to me, does not do justice to the gravity of the act. So to go back,
this is what happened, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get the correct clip just now. When you hear Gaspard tells you that, look, how long he had to wait for files, for completed files to reach on the desk. I think I want to withdraw my blame on Gaspard, because I was saying, well, why the Camille Robinson wages file with the $143,800? How come we ain't hearing nothing? But I had to be cautious now with what I'm saying, because I wonder if that file ever reached by Gaspard. I had to wonder if that file ever reached by Gaspard. We have so much allegation of corruption within the PNM, and I am wondering where if those files will ever reach there. So when we look at crime and the results of crime, we are all kind of at the proceeds of crime, and we want to seize this and seize that and seize this and seize the other. But let me tell you something. What we fail to recognize in this country is that the criminals, they are learning from the politicians. It is the politicians that have the criminals behaving how they behaving. Because when the criminals see all these various allegations that continue to hang up in this country, and we have no accountability, we have no minister in jail, no former minister in jail, from OEOH to OEOH, nobody in making jail, nobody in even ending up in front of the court. What do you expect the criminals to do? The PNM is known for working with criminal entities, you know. I draw to your attention, Patrick Manning appointed Mark Guerra, who was a notorious criminal, while Mark Guerra was the advisor to Gerald Narain. When Gerald Narain was the Minister of Local Government, Mark Guerra was wanted for murder, robbery, kidnapping, shootings. Wanted, and Manning appointed him. We see another PNM minister carry this one from Sealots, Boki, in the president's house that's swearing in. We saw that. We had a man who came, Vernon Paul, and tell you that high ranking from prime minister and ministers of labor and other people were responsible for setting up Sadiq Bash with cocaine and mortar bomb. We had a PNM acting commissioner who sent back the man Venezuela and tell him I come in to get statement. And when the man landed in Venezuela, he was shot dead. So the PNM are custom. It is nothing strange. They are custom. They utilize the criminal entity to suppress the voting in areas to ensure that the PNM have a victory. This is facts, you know. This is not fiction, you know. This is not old talk, you know. This is facts. We are people who sitting in government who should be in jail. A big human trafficking old talk come out, and everybody pointing finger. We pointing finger left, we pointing finger right. We pointing finger front, we pointing finger in the back. You know what is my position? Jail all who involved. That is my position. Jail all who involved. That is my position. PNM involved, jail them. UNC involved, jail them. Normal citizen involved, jail them. That is Victor Roberts' position. I am not condoning, supporting wrongdoing, no way, not even in the party that I belongs to. I am not going to support and condemn. You know why? Because Victor Roberts, I am not a wrecker. And if you miss that, you will catch it later. I am not a wrecker. We have to stand up for what is right, and we have to demand what is right. We have to demand what is right in the PNM, and we have to demand what is right in the UNC. We have to demand good governance. That is what we have to demand. This is no play game, and I like you, and I didn't like you, and I like he, but I didn't like she. I like Sando, but I don't like Princess Tong. No, that is not what it is about. Good governance is what this is about. Stand up for what is right, don't matter what. You know, my mother used to tell me, Victor, speak the truth and speak it ever. Don't matter what it causes. You know how much cut skin that truth caused me? You know how much cut skin? Because what? She tell me speak the truth. And when I speak the truth, I gain some belt, you know. I ain't getting belt for speaking the truth, but I getting belt because I did wrong. And I stand the consequence when I did wrong. And in government, people must stand the consequence when they do wrong. I want to welcome attorney at law Kiel Tacklalsingh. So the cameraman just straighten we up and putting we in a gear here. We looking good? And if we ain't looking good, we good looking. That is a normal thing. So I want to welcome my friend, my brother, my lawyer, my colleague to this platform. I know the main good, but this platform I want to welcome him on. You know, he may not very well be privileged to go on other platforms, but on this platform, he welcome here all the time, every time. Because this platform here is about facts, not fiction. And once you're about facts and fiction, here is the place for you. Because if you come here and you start with fiction, I will stop you in mid-flight and tell Archie, switch off your mic and ask you to leave the studio. So we ain't even keeping it inside the studio to contaminate it, you know. You're going outside by the road. And when you're passing there, if I have a number, I could call the solid waste management for them to send a rubbish truck. We pick you up with a rubbish truck too. And done the story. So welcome, my brother.
Good night, Victor. Good night, Archie. Good night, everybody. Good night, all of the viewers. To facts, not fiction. And to the sanitary department of San Fernando in the event that we have to put anybody out.
Very well. I dealt with the statistics for the year from January 1st to 19th of April.
Crime statistics.
Where we have 180 murders, and I'll give a breakdown with where we had triple murders and double murders in each of the 9 different police divisions and so on. But I want to read this before we get in. So I read in here, as we continue to speak on crime, I want to tell you it's not only Fitzgerald Hines and not only Keith Rowley, but listen this. Professional Standard Bureau officers yesterday arrested 9 officers from a specialized unit within the TTPS. Listen this. They arrest 9 officers from a specialized unit in the TTPS within the Eastern Division. The arrest came after the Professional Standard Bureau completed their investigation into allegations from a business owner that he and other business owners were being extorted by a group of officers over some time. The 9 officers were initially detained at the Sandy Grande police station, where warrants of arrest were read to them by Professional Standard Bureau officers. Guardian Media House understands some of the officers were in a meeting with senior officers, which was disrupted by the PSB officers in order to make the arrest. The investigating PSB officers subsequently conduct searches at the officers' home and lockers. The 9 arrest officers were later taken to the Port of Spain Professional Standard Bureau, where they were expected to be charged with misbehavior in public office and other offenses. The Police Complainant Authority, the PCA, began parallel probe after claims of extortion, racketeering involving officers were made in a social media post last month. So, ladies and gentlemen, so while earlier Christopher telling us by June, we will have a reduction, we now see that 9 of her specialized officers would soon be before the court. I don't know if they will be looking for Kiel Tacklalsingh to represent them, because if you're looking for a good lawyer to represent you, this is the man.
Do that.
Now, I'm not certain of what type of case that he takes. But we are seeing today that we have 9 specialized trained police officers. Today, someone was telling me about a tongue meeting that the police had somewhere in Cuba recently. And they was telling me about the bucket of hogwash that some superintendent stand up and talk in a meeting. I was trying to get the clip, but I'll get to that subsequent program. And I want to play that clip, because remember, I played the clip for you with the last one in Diego Martin. When the ACP tell we that he blaming we parents for we joining gang. And I had also tell them how idiotic he is, because they tell us that they know who the gang leaders are, they know the gangs, they know everything. And if you know everything, then how come you're blaming we the parents for what children joining gangs? While if you do your job and clean the gangs up, you have all kind of spyware from Israel. If you do your job and clean up the gangs in this country, then we wouldn't have no children to join no gang. That is reality. That is a fact. So I hear this policeman come and start talking about when he was going to school and he break beach and he proud of his what's the word he used? He is very proud of, in my words, the level of academic qualifications that he attained during the short period, and he became a police officer, and he this and he that and the other, until people started to say, well, we ain't come to hear that, we want to hear what to do to make us safe. And I know Kiel have some things that he will put out, that if the TTPS and the government take it, I am certain that we will very well be in a better place. So we don't want to hear what the problem. We know is the problem. The problem every Monday morning, people getting killed, people dying, gunshot here, gunshot there, gunshot ring out, gunshot ring in, gunshot. We know. We want to hear, Rowley, what is the plan? Not to ban assault rifles, which is already banned. We want to know what is the plan to make us safe. And we know that burglar-proof, fancy locks on doors is not the answer. Because people lock themselves in, but the criminals invade. That is where we are. So what is the solution? Put our hands up in the air and surrender? Well, we will test the business chamber. All you crying, all you want help, we testing all you. We have a date coming. We have a date coming very soon. And we will see what will come out of that date. Kiel, I made mention that today you put together a document for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, and we did not submit it today because today is the 15th day.
Yes. And
the law states, the Summary of Offences Act tells us 14 days and not less than 24 hours.
You know that act good. 48 hours.
48 hours, sorry. So if we submit today, they have the right not to treat with it.
Yes.
So we're going to submit my information. I spoke to our officer and he said to me that Saturday and Sunday we would not be able to deliver it at Police Administration Building, but first thing Monday morning we could discuss that. So my question to you is, in light of that, would we be able to share any light on what our plans is?
Well, there's nothing wrong in law in telling people that you intend to organize a march according to the laws of Trinidad and Tobago and according to the Summary Offences Act. You have not taken any material step as yet, except to now tell people about it, and that you will be putting in the correct and necessary application pursuant to the Summary Offences Act. On Monday morning, bright and early, we've drafted the document, and you are right. Unfortunately, in another matter that we have, which we can't talk about, which is before the court, one of the things the police are saying is that because they don't consider applications that come outside of the 14 days, well, so be it, we go within the 14 days.
Right.
And we will do what we have to do, and I think that is something that the citizens of this country should support very strongly. I would urge that we don't give too much details until the application is in, because we want to abide by the law and we're not inciting anybody to do anything unlawful. But that march that you are organizing, we'll give the date something on Monday, I think, and we'll put it out. And I think I saw you spoke about the business chamber. I think everybody, every right-thinking citizen, every person who is concerned about crime, anybody who thinks they have the solution to crime, all chambers, all interest groups, all political parties, I think you could be in the PNM and come and march too, because I think even the PNM is fed up of the PNM government's management of crime.
Right.
So I think that is something that is to look forward, something that the country could look forward to, at least in terms of causing positive change in relation to the fight against crime. So I support that 100%. Right?
Right. So, my brother, the theme of the night proceedings is basically that the citizens of this country demand safety and security.
Yes.
I know from where you sit, you are very well articulated, and not only so, but you are well informed as to where we are within the safety and security of this country. We have seen, as I read earlier on, where Hines tell the country that his job is not to put any crime plan in place.
Yeah.
We also saw where Rowley stated that moving Hines will not solve the problem, which I agree.
No,
because I am saying moving Hines and leaving Rowley, you can't solve the problem.
No.
So I agree. So in the absence of removing Hines and removing the PNM, because while there are those who would sing Rowley have to go and Rowley must go and Rowley must go now and call election now and call election now and call it and call it and call it, we know for a fact, based on the disposition of Rowley, we not anticipating any election before its time.
Agreed.
Not saying that it cannot happen, right? But bear that in mind, and bearing that just singing Rowley and Hines had to go cannot fix the crime situation outside of the removal of this government. What would you advocate for that you believe may make the citizens of this country much safer? I know I asked a lot there.
There's a big question. Fortunately or unfortunately, I am not the Minister of National Security.
Right.
so that those types of questions are very complicated. Now, I mean, let's take some of the things you said tonight.
Right.
One of the things you spoke about is this PSB arrest, the Professional Standards Bureau arresting police officers. Now, in my view, and just because you've raised it, you can't fix crime if the people who are in charge of fixing crime themselves are involved in crime.
Right.
I think that is a very basic principle. If the force to detect, protect, and prosecute crime, right, or protect against crime and prosecute crime are themselves involved in crime, then you have to deal with that. Now, one of the things I have always advocated is that we need to strengthen the police complaints authority. The police complaints authority, as they are now, they're very well intentioned, but they really have no power. What they can do is receive your reports, they can investigate, they could do a report, and they could forward that report to the DPP and the Commissioner of Police. Whether or not the DPP or the Commissioner of Police acts on that, that's another issue.
Right.
But they have a lot of good investigative power, and I would encourage everybody to go and make the reports. What I think has to happen is the time has come that the Police Complaints Authority is given prosecutorial power. And what I mean by that is that they must be able, if anybody makes a report about police corruption, yes, the police can investigate it, but the Police Complaints Authority, who is independent of the police, who does not report to the Commissioner of Police or any senior police officer, could go into the police service, any station, take any document, investigate policemen like regular citizens, investigate them, gather the evidence, and then take them to court and prosecute them if necessary.
Right.
And I think that is one thing, just in terms of what you've said today, that we have to deal with. Now, I myself am of the view that if you replace Hines, you're not really going to get much difference. Unfortunately, I don't see much talent coming forward in the People's National Movement to treat with crime. They've had other security ministers, and crime has been rampant throughout for the past 7 or 8 years. And the political message from the People's National Movement through their minister is horrible. I mean, just this week you had, I think a few days ago, you had what was really a night of terror. I had to see, I don't mean to say anything. I know today's Eid, so maybe I won't use that reference, but I don't know if there was blood in the sky or that some people, there was something in the air that was causing criminality to run rampant, because it was horrific when one night you had a number of murders, home invasions, and business shootings. That was very recent. And right after that, Victor, you had the Minister of National Security with another stellar Facebook post. I don't know if you saw it. Actually, you have that Facebook post that the Minister of National Security put up. Yes, look, Archie on the ball, man. Let's analyze this. This is Fitzgerald Hines, I think, with a picture of Haile Selassie. Is that
Yeah.
Anyway, right?
Yeah.
Good. So, talking about the crime symposium, which we will get into. We will get into that. But look at what he says here. Scenes from the very fruitful, information-bearing, intellectually stirring, and timely conference conceptualized by Dr. Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Let's break that down. What came out of that conference, Victor? What was the tangible deliverables from that conference? What decisions were made in that conference that are going to be implemented? What strategies were conceived and conceptualized by the persons there who in attendance, right, that will lead to a reduction in crime? Absolutely nothing. Zero. Nothing at all. What came out of the conference? Let's see. We're going to embark on some fancy litigation against firearm dealers in America. Nothing to do with crime in Trinidad and Tobago. Nothing to do. Nobody in Trinidad and Tobago is committing crime with assault rifles that are legally obtained. None. So I don't know where you're going to get this firearm and what are you going to do to stop it. Right? Secondly, they talk about no bail for murder. And they say that they criticize the judiciary. And they say the judiciary playing the fool and all kind. First of all, that is a real breach of separation of powers in a sense. Why is the executive attacking the judiciary for judicial decisions? A decision which was upheld by the Privy Council, by the way. Now, I am not a fan. Nobody here wants to have a murderer walk free. But in every society, you have a rule of law system, and the principle is innocent until proven guilty. Otherwise, you could have policemen just walking around and saying, Victor, you see that march you're planning? Yeah, putting no thing over here. Top order than TV tonight, are charging you.
Yeah.
Not a basis in law to charge you. Not a basis in law to charge you, but they charge you, put you in jail. Is that the kind of society we really want? And let us look at the logic of the argument. What is the logic of the argument? That somehow the law is causing criminality. Well, there was no bail for murder only up until last year.
Yep.
So that is a totally stupid argument with all due respect. There was no bail for murder up till last year. Up till last year, you had record-breaking murders. And how much bail applications were granted? Maybe 2 or 3.
3, yeah.
Right? So them 3 fellas went and killed 500 people under house arrest. That's totally ridiculous. That has nothing to do with crime. You want to solve crime and you want to jail murderers, you have to fix your criminal justice system. from the time you are accused and charged, you should have your trial within 6 months. That is where your focus should be. Your focus should not be on trying to lock up people forever and throw away the key and deprive them of a trial and keep them in jail 12 years, 13 years, and they don't have a trial. And you don't have a witness, you don't have a trial, you beat a confession out of a man and you have them in 13 years in jail. And I'm not saying no, everybody, I'm not saying people in jail innocent, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we have a rule of law system. It's either we have a rule of law system or we don't. It's either we abide by laws in the country or we don't. Right? So that is total nonsense. So nothing that came out of that conference was tangible. The only thing they spoke about is crime as some public health issue, which is total nonsense. But let's go on to read this. Praise for his vision and courage to put this together, and the timeliness were repeatedly underscored by every regional leader in attendance. So all he's saying there is, I am kissing Keith Rowley's you know what, and the other regional leaders are also kissing his you know what. Mm-hmm. Was the president of Guyana there, by the way? No, that's strange. All right, let's move on, right? The mood is one of unity, one of determination, one of resolution. What did you resolve to do? What position were you united in? What are you determined to do? This is his words, I'm just asking. In that conference, what did they unify behind that is now tangible that we're doing? What are they determined to do? What project or proposal are they determined to implement? All for the safety and security of our people. Imagine he is making this statement 2 or 3 days after one of the worst crime sprees in a single night in our country. And then he goes on to berate poor leader of the opposition, evil woman from Sepawakata. No, I don't even want to repeat that, right? And all of that nonsense there about this and that. So, and you see, you can bring it back. That is the typical poor leadership, poor ministerial responsibility. You have no solution. You cause a distraction, hocus pocus. We need a little fanfare to take the sting out of crime in the eyes of the population, and then you come and you attack the opposition. But at the end of the day, you have lost souls in this country who have died because of murder and gun violence. No justice for them, no justice for the society, and we continue to live in fear in Trinidad and Tobago with absolutely no hope in mind. And one of the things I have said, Victor, and I've said it on another program, one of the things I've said is that there must be, in my view, an adjustment in the self-defense law. It's being called stand your ground on different things. As the leader of the opposition espoused it well, and I think it is something we need to do. And what that position is in law, currently under our self-defense law, if someone attacks you, you are allowed to use force to defend yourself, but that force must be reasonable and the circumstances must be objective that you decide to use that reasonable force, right? Reasonability. My view is that standard should only apply out in the public. But when you come to my home or my business and you enter my premises and you come to do me harm, I am not to think. The law must not make me think about what is reasonable. I must be able to kill you to defend myself without fear of repercussion, fear of legal consequence, and remorse. That is my view on how the self-defense law has to be adjusted in Trinidad and Tobago to treat with things. I think that is one thing that will be a deterrent against criminals entering into people's homes and businesses to do wrong. One of the other things I called for on the show, incidentally, Victor, was that the Procurement Act should be proclaimed. That was Monday night. Well, I see they've proclaimed the Procurement Act. I'm not taking credit at all. Many people have been calling for it. But I made that call, and it's so strange that they've made this proclamation. So they say they're bringing the Procurement Act, right? Do you know that we do have a procurement chairman? You had Mr. Munila Lalchan, who was appointed by the former President Carmona. He has been there about 5 years. So for the last 5 years,
no regulator?
No. For the last 5 years, you had a chairman of the regulation board, of the procurement board. The board was constituted and fully functional. But they won't proclaim any legislation. Surprise, surprise, his term is up. So now there is no chairman, and they run and proclaim the act without a chairman. So the act can't be functioned without a chairman. And I'll give you one guess, Victor, who appoints the chairman of the procurement board?
Well, it had to be the Prime Minister.
No, it's the president.
Well, she will act on advice.
And we now see,
the Prime Minister.
and we now see why, when we was making all that noise in January and February about why it is the appointment of a president is so important to independent institutions in this country. Nobody could ever say, we could say things about Carmona, right? But nobody could ever say he was either UNC or PNM. I don't think anybody could have said that. He was a fairly independent fellow, right? He was a former judge, went on the thing, nobody could bribe him or tell him what to do, right? He appointed this fellow, Munina Lalchan. 5 years, they've been holding back the legislation, holding it back. His term was up, I think, in February this year. They appoint their president, right? Appoint their president, and now what happens? Now they get to appoint their chairman of the procurement board, the board that is supposed to deal with the corrupt giving of contracts and financing in this country. Is it that we don't want to investigate? I mean, I don't mean to sound political. I hear it saying it. Is it that they don't want to investigate who's the contractors building Balize House? Is that what it is? I don't know. I'm just asking a question. But the problem is, this is why it was so important that the population demand that the president at least be somewhat insulated and independent. And Victor, we need to now put public pressure on her, because we don't want any PNM stooge being appointed as a procurement chairman. How much you want to bet they're looking for some former PNM minister, diplomat, functionary,
PS,
former commissioner, police, PNM, wait and see what kind of person you get in that commission.
Let me come back to that. I want to go back to crime a little bit.
Right.
So they had this big symposium. We haven't had nothing tangible that can be implemented to reduce or to have a reduction in crime.
Right.
I am saying...
Well, we could wear masks because it's a public health issue.
Right.
So we could put on some masks.
We could also make a report by a drugstore. When
yeah.
somebody attack us, we could go
to the hospital.
Report.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I think you classify that in the proper category as a distraction. Because if we are serious, and I come to the question that I spelled out earlier on, if we are serious in terms of fighting and dealing with crime in this country, I think my little son Omar know exactly where to start. Because you cannot have people living below the poverty line and expect that crime would not be on the increase. You cannot put a lockdown on employment and sending home thousands upon thousands of individuals from having a job and doesn't expect crime to increase. You cannot have ministers with serious allegations and no investigation is publicly known to be taking place and would not have an increase in crime. You cannot have all the play parks and playgrounds and so on dilapidated, infrastructure falling apart, and cannot have an increase in crime.
Yes.
To deal with the crime situation is not a symposium, is not a ban on assault rifles, but to deal with the crime situation, it is a holistic plan where you will have to get the various ministries, get social ministry involved, get labor involved, get local government involved, get health involved, and get sport involved, and really get education involved to fix the crime problem. Because what we are experiencing now, Kyle, You cannot fix it from that age bracket. We have to be able to ensure that our kindergartens are functional. We have to ensure that our primary schools are functional and well disciplined. We have to ensure that our secondary schools, that the moral standards is high in these institutions. To even start to think about fixing the crime problem, we are seeing today that in our school, from primary come right up, the violent attack on each other, the brutality. We have seen in our primary schools where children bullying children to get box lunch to carry home for the siblings at home. And when we have these situations at our doorstep, we have parents who cannot afford to send children to school, who cannot provide uniforms, sneakers, books. I mean, we have all the attributes to create a real criminal society. And until the people of the country realize that the government, it's only embarking on distracting the population from what is really the root cause, which is the government doesn't have policies in place to deal with the situation. They doesn't have a vision to bring a holistic policy that will take Trinidad and Tobago out of the situation. So in the absence of all that, then I will think the next best thing to do to give the people of this country a fighting chance is to allow people to arm themselves.
I have said, I agree with you to a large extent, right? I just put it a different way. Let me put it this way. But let's start with the beginning. In terms of poverty and crime, there is a link. That is not to say that every person who is poor will commit crime. But I do think poverty creates instability in the home, instability in a community, where you have people who could be lured into a life of crime, lured into gangs. So there is a link between poverty and crime. What do statistics tell us? There's a famous economist by the name of Thomas Sowell, American economist. And what he says is that when you look at it, 6% of the population commits 50% of the crime. Essentially, that's the figure. Around 6% of your population commits about 50% of your crime. And that most crime is committed by young men, disproportionately young men, somewhere between the ages of 18 to 35.
Right.
A large number. So from that alone, you could target social programs and different diversion tactics, because that's what you call it. You want to divert young people away from crime. And the question is, do we have things in this population that could encourage young men particularly, but young people generally, to move away and not choose a life of crime choose something more positive as opposed to a life of crime? Because you're in that very society or that very community where you have poor social conditions, poor financial conditions. The natural allure could be, and it's not every young person who's in a poor family, because you may have different parents. There are many young people who came out of good families who don't go to crime, they went to education, that kind of thing. But for the weaker families and for the weaker family units, you might have a single mother, you might have living with grandparents because if the parents die, etc. What is the pull away from the life of gangs and the life of crime? Where are the sports clubs? Where are the community organizations, the police youth club? Where are all these other things? Because what you want, you know your pool of persons who might end up in a life of crime. They're about 6% male, ages 17 to 35. Are we doing enough to pull that cohort away from the gangs and criminal element? Now, you can't say you're doing that when you end gate, when you cut scholarships to a shadow of what it was, you end programs like live sport. All this talk about corruption in live sport, not one charge on anybody in live sport, right? All of this talk, right? And Robert's still here doing program every day. All of this nonsense they want to talk about him. Total rubbish. Where is it? How? Don't call it live sport. If you feel that life sport was such a, don't call it that. Where is your program to encourage and incentivize young people instead of taking a $200? And let me tell you something. I did criminal law for my first 5 or 10 years in practice. I don't do it as much now, right? I know the charges that young men get in. You know what's the charges? They have a gun hiding in the bedroom. And when you ask them, and I ain't talking about specific client business, I'm talking generally, they say, well, boy, fellas down the road, they can mail 500 to keep that day. And somebody tipped them off, and police raid you, and now I have to defend you. Never use the gun in your life, you know. But now what happens? They get charged. They end up not getting bail for a few weeks, months. They meet whoever in prison, and the next 6 or 7 visits, instead of coming in my office humble and sad and frightened, they're bouncing in my office and say, Taklal, how are you in this kid?
Yeah.
And I have seen the evolution of young men who nevertheless did not want to get into a life of crime, accepted something because you want to make a lecture change to do something. Now you go into the system and you become a professional criminal. And it's very hard to divert you at that point. So where is the program? Instead, why don't we have the local football club or cricket club telling the young man, instead of holding a gun, hey, I'm going to pay you $500, come and train some football. And that's what life sport was. But if you don't want to call it life sport, call it something else.
Sports for life.
Sports for life, right? And I'm sure Alan Roberts, who is one of the most successful coaches in the world, right, who wouldn't mind if he don't put his face on it, right?
Yeah.
But that's the point. That was a brilliant idea. You taint it with your stupid politics. But all right, you put that aside. What are you doing to incentivize it? To pull these young people away from it? Nothing. And that is why you're not dealing with the conversion of our young talent into criminality. Instead of converting them into the next astronauts, the next Brian Laras, the next Arcturian scientist, the next person to find a cure to the next COVID, the brilliant talent, the next Minshall, the next, Marshall. Instead of converting our... Oh God, well, all right. And I'll call in there for now.
Good evening, my brothers, Victor and
Good evening, Senator Roberts.
Good evening, Senator.
How are you all, my UNC warriors? Brilliant program as usual, always enlightening the population. How is everybody?
Good. Everybody's good.
Well, I just touching base, people must say they hear the dog line a long time, they only getting doubles and coffee, but everything is A-okay, we working hard, we on the ground and we enjoying the facts, not fiction.
Yes, Archie getting a call, you gotta hang up that call.
Archie getting another call.
Heavy feedback there.
That works. Hold on there, Anel, hold on.
Anel.
Yes, I'm right here, we're not ready.
As usual, Anel Big Mouth causing some problems there. Right, go ahead, we hear you now.
Yeah, Archie have to remember because we take a little holiday for the Easter. Let me first of all say Eid Mubarak to the Muslim community of Trinidad and Tobago. And may Allah's gracious blessings bless each and every one of us, irrespective of religion, race, gender, class, or social standing. We need prayers more now than ever because in times of incompetence and lack of vision and hopelessness, all the good can do is look to the Almighty to help us because the PNM certainly cannot.
Exactly.
And it is really sad. I want to say condolences to the family of all the people who have been touched within the last month by the horrendous crime situation, the murders that go unabated, the wickedness and evil that is moving around the country without fear, without any fear of reprisals, of being caught, of punishment. The PNM and the government have thrown their hands up in the air and they've given up spending some $8 to $12 million on a symposium to try to tell us that crime is a Caribbean problem and that we should not
see and feel what we see and feel every day here in Trinidad and Tobago, which is the exacerbation of the fear, criminality, wickedness, and evil that has pervaded the society in increasing elements over the last 8 years, reaching the highest and worst levels as we speak. People are not safe anywhere, and our children, our mothers, our wives are all feeling nervous. Children have to stay locked up in the house under burglar proofing. Parents are afraid to let them go out in the street to play cricket or take a sweat. This is not Trinidad and Tobago, and people must accept responsibility. They talk a good game and they say that they have solutions when they are totally incompetent. Every system, every institution is failing. The PNM has failed as a cabinet. The Minister of National Security has failed. The National Security Council has failed. The PNM government has failed. The anti-crime plan, they now say that they have none, but they claim that they knew it all before. The judiciary is under threat through lack of resources. The DPP had to come out in a joint select committee and basically say the PNM is trying to influence its office and starve its office of resources in order to control the DPP's office. The parliament has become a mockery. The blue-haired lady and the former now president, Kangaloo, turned the debates into a PNM fiesta. The country is crying out for some sort of equity and justice. And the only people fighting are people like your good self, Victor, Kyle, Kamala Prasad Bisesa, and the UNC. Politics is a very serious thing, and we must all put aside our petty differences, our selfishness. We must not feel that because we could buy air condition for a building that is built with corrupt money, that we must get a senatorial position. And if we don't get a ministerial position, we are angry. And if we don't get to be mayor, we are angry, and we join the evil, and we support evil because we only care about ourselves. We have to start to work together. Listen to the information. Forget race, religion, class, or gender. Vote for our children. Our country will be lost forever, Kyle and Victor.
Correct.
Correct. Thank you. Very good.
You are so correct.
So I'm just touching base. Archie tell me my people and them, they hear my voice. So I've just said I will touch facts, not fiction, and talk to you all a little bit this evening. Keep up the great work. Keep the discussion going. And if you want to talk live sport, that's what you have to talk. You have to talk about real programs to get down to the real problems of delinquent youth who are committing crime because of lack of love, lack of respect, lack of understanding, lack of parenting, lack of opportunities, lack of anything. You have to get in there and give them that. That's what live sport was. Putting food in their stomach, giving them a little money that they could spend, letting them touch and be mentored on a daily basis, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, by national heroes, national captains, footballers, cricketers, boxers, basketballers, coaches, mentors, planning, working, getting IDs, getting jobs, identifying talent, giving them guidance, social workers, teaching them how to interact with one another, breaking down the borderlines. That is what life sport is. The PNM leaves people, throws crumbs, and come to tell you about empower. Come on, let me talk about how to shave, how to soap we arm, how to eat with knife and fork. Abject, total nonsense by the PNM as young black boys kill one another and shooting and killing other people through stray bullets. Collateral damage is becoming the norm. God bless you all. Have a great show. I'm locked on. Share the live.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you very much, Arnold. Thank you very much. Well, I think he summarized everything.
And that is the fact of the matter, Kyle. We are the place in this country where it seems as there is absolutely no hope for the country, and something need to happen. But at the same time, we just can't sit down and hope for something to happen.
No, and that Arnold has it right. You've put nothing in place to divert young people away from crime. Well, all right, so you've failed on that end. Gangs are now able to recruit, and you have a large criminal element now. Are you doing anything now on the enforcement end? Because you have prevention. Doctors call it prophylactic, but you have prevention. What's the cure now? What are you doing on the enforcement and protection end? Nothing. It is clear that the police service, despite having a cadre of good, hardworking, motivated police, it is clear that they are unable to get the crime problem under control sufficiently to protect lives in this country. And nobody is saying that there won't be any crime. I think that's impossible. Every society is going to have crime. The statisticians tell you about a bell curve. There's something called a standard deviation. You're always going to have, in every society, people who follow the norm. You will have people who vary from the norm a great deal, and then you'll have people who are just about the norm. Right? And that is standard deviation. So you're going to have it. But how are you
Actually, we can take the call, sir.
How are you going to deal with it? And one of the things you can't deal with it by is saying you're having a war on guns, when in fact legal firearms are the only line of protection for many citizens in this country. You can't say that we want to attack firearms, but you're leaving the criminals with their firearms. No port scanner, no porous borders, no scanner to scan cars that are driving by to see if there's firearm. But you want to take away and prevent law-abiding citizens from defending their lives by obtaining a firearm in the event their home or business is raided. That can't be right. If you are unable to do the job, then let people, for God's sake, let people protect their own lives. That is your right. I don't know, we have a call? No. Okay, sorry.
But the facts still remain, be all that as it may. While the police, as you say, the cadre of hard workers, the point remains is that the police would only and can only utilize the legislation that is there to do their job.
Yes.
Now, as time goes on in a society and things improve, we have to understand at the same time we in the computer age, there is things that we had no knowledge of that we had knowledge now. There is access to things that we at one point didn't have access to, that the youth have access to now. And the other, I see something pop up on my phone. And curious as always, I touch it, pow.
That's a dangerous thing, but go ahead.
Well, when I touch it, I realize how dangerous it was.
Okay.
When I touch it, pow.
I feel like I set it up a defense for something.
No. When I touch it, you know what it was, Sky?
No.
They're telling you if you want to make a pressure cooker bomb.
Wow.
I'm being real.
Yeah.
So the point I'm making is that there is so much things that is available to the young, unguided mind that if you doesn't have in place things, as you were saying, to point the young people in another direction, of course they will go to the direction that is available.
Well, there's two things you raised there. The first thing, yes, you must have, as we have said, things to divert the youth. But the second part of that is also important. Crime and criminality have become very sophisticated, very technology driven. So the criminal now is using the technology to avoid capture, to pull off his heist in an efficient way, to plan and to execute criminal activity, and is quite simply outfoxing and outsmarting the police in our country. And that is not to say that the police can't catch up. I think one of the problems is that the police service now has to find ways to attract some of the brightest minds in our country. And this is an honest view. This is not to criticize the police service. The current conditions of police officers that they have to work in are horrible. Go in any police station. We know the cells are horrible. But imagine you have to work next to those cells on a 24-hour basis. Imagine you have all of this. We need to ensure the police service have strong conditions so that they attract good people to come and work. Go ahead, caller.
Welcome, caller.
Good afternoon to Archie, Kiel Tacklalsingh, Victor Roberts, and the man who just speak just now, the Anil Robert.
Good day,
I
sir.
want to tell Mr. Kiel something. Good afternoon, Kiel.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Kiel, I am. Good afternoon to you all, gentlemen. Kiel.
You listening to the
Caller, you have to talk on your phone and turn off your radio or move away from the radio or the TV or wherever you're
All right,
by.
Kiel. All right, Kiel. Nothing.
Because you'll get a feedback.
Right. I want to tell you that this gentleman here who's speaking to you here, I am ready to take the walk on the side of you any part of the country you need. I am willing. Victor Robert, you know who's speaking to you.
Yeah, make all the voice now.
All right, you hear me good now?
Yeah, you go ahead, but you have to move away from the
Right.
radio or the
Victor, you know
TV.
who's speaking to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm ready to take the walk with you all any part. With Kiel and you, Victor, I will be there with you right through.
Well, grease your shoe heel.
Right? I'll be there with you all as already. Just call out and I will be there.
I appreciate. We appreciate, my
Thank you
brother.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll see you there.
Right, so he was making the point where
Technology, the police service has to now start to attract better talent. You have a lot of engineers, doctors, lawyers coming out of the institutions, tertiary institutions, and they can't find jobs. Why is the police service not attracting these people to assist in detecting and fighting crime? Not everybody have to have a gun and a shotgun and run in. You have investigation, you have analysis, you have the evidence, you have planning. Fix the conditions in the police service, pay them better, because your priority is now solving crime. Our number one priority in this country has to be to fight crime. So why are policemen not paid well? They are not paid well at all. They need to be paid better, and you will attract better talent in the police service.
well, that's
to fight
probably
crime.
why this 9 was arrested, because they
Well,
probably
that's another issue.
in
Well, I mean, with all due respect, and I'm not commenting on any specific investigation, but you'll forgive me for not having the greatest confidence in the Professional Standards Bureau, right? That was the same fellas who have 500 bullets that missing, right? That they still can't answer for. And they went and they did an investigation into themselves, and they clear it. And I had to write a letter and tell the Commissioner of Police that it's clear she's lost control of the police service. And it might be because her management system is to pray as opposed to manage. And of course, we all invite and love prayer. It is Eid and happy Eid to everybody, right? But when you come to the Commissioner of Police, you have to do more, unfortunately. You have to do more than pray. You have to manage, you have to lead.
Kyle,
That is where I think one of the weaknesses in the police
I
service.
think the greater weakness in the police service is because the executive has allowed themselves to be controlled by the political directorate.
Yeah, the executive is, yes, so the ministers now, and the prime minister and the minister are controlling the police service. And I
That
think
is
that
where
is
the
right.
problem-
We saw where the director of public prosecution had to make, in a joint select committee, certain comments to suggest that there are attempts to influence his office. There are attempts. He didn't say it was being done, but there are attempts.
But we saw that with John Jeremy. We saw that with
Yes.
Mark Nichols. We have a history of the political directorate interfering
Yeah.
with the independent structure. And when you allow the independent structure to be contaminated with politics, then you will really collapse.
Yeah, you have that clip, Pachi, yeah.
That is what happened with the police service. The police service, from where I sit, I am convinced that the police service executive is on the verge of collapsing.
Yeah.
Because they allow the influence of the political directorate to infiltrate.
You have it? Run it there. Let the very esteemed Senator Lakshmi Dayal asking the
No, you have a call on there.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome, caller. Sorry. Welcome, caller.
Hello, good night, gentlemen.
Good night.
Good night.
Well, I listened to Keith Christopher Rowley, and he talked hard to the U.S. He didn't talk to them so nice. And he said to them that they must guard their borders, and he will guard his borders. And these other people, these hungry mouth people that they bring here, we have nothing in the country, right? They're worse than we. They say they're going to guard their borders. I want to know how that's happening, because we, the mother country, who does help them, we ain't have anything to help them. They can't help us. It's we who always helping them. Okay? So what I think he should have done is, as Prime Minister of this country, right? What he should have done is ask them to come in here to help the situation. And I ain't hear anybody come up with that suggestion as yet. Okay? I find the way things are right now, with this crisis, this is a crisis, they should reach out to the U.S. for help. Because I predict by next month, people ain't going to want to come out to go to work, to send the children to school. Teachers will just say, we're not going out. And it will have crisis on top of crisis. So all this set of old talk, right now we need help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Well, she's right, and that's one of the reasons why I don't understand this symposium. You want to get solutions and feedback on crime, come to your society. Come to your policemen, come to your citizens, come to your victims of crime. Find out what is going on, study it, examine it, and come up with solutions. What does Ralph Gonzalez have to tell you about how to solve crime? That young fellas buying tiffin because they want to buy things for their girlfriend? That is his great analysis into crime, with all due respect to him. I don't understand where this Caribbean symposium is going to help us solve crime. And I would like to know how much money was spent on it, by the way.
Well, that is the bigger picture.
I want to know how much money was spent on it, because with that same money, we could have sent some children on scholarship. We could have taken some young people and sent them on scholarship, bring them back here to do social work, psychology, anti-gang intervention, all these things to start fixing crime and the problem. So that's the first thing. The second thing, of course, crime is a problem in all societies. In Trinidad, it is a worse problem than most countries, because I see we rated 6 or something in the world, right?
6.
So don't come and say crime is a problem everywhere when you are the worst. You know, that's like the Bajan in the class, saying, well, everybody just behave bad. So all they come and let we have a talk. The Bajan want to talk to everybody about good behavior in class. Foolishness. We are a sovereign democratic state. You know what sovereignty means? We stand sovereign as in an independent state. So we have to deal with our problems in our country. Archie.
Welcome, caller.
Good night, Victor.
Good night.
And after saying good night to my good friend, Kiel Tacklalsingh.
Good night.
That song like Brian Big.
Well, yes, it is.
Yeah, Brian.
How are you, sir?
How are you, Brian?
I am good. I'm glad to hear what you all are talking about. I lost you on a bit after the connection was lost. But nonetheless, I know you are talking about, especially with the crime situation in this country. Right? And I can speak on that as a victim of crime myself. As I myself am a victim of a home invasion. So, I want to say today that I totally am in support of what the leader of the opposition has come about with talking about the stand your ground law. And it's time that we as a nation stand our ground as well.
Right.
And we as a nation stand our ground and tell Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, it is time to go. It is time to call a general election. We are seeing where nothing is happening. We just had a symposium on crime, which I have to say was a waste of time, a waste of resources, a waste of everything. To do what? When you have a Minister of National Security who is bereft of ID, who knows absolutely nothing. I imagine, I'm sure Kyle will tell you, that the government is coming to ban automatic rifles. But if anybody takes a chance and look at Firearms Act, such type of weapons are already banned.
Of course, correct.
I don't know who they're speaking to. I don't know who they are trying to talk to. It is ridiculous. Right? And I listened to...
Actually, had a Gary clip. You have the
I
Gary
also
clip?
listened to where people were saying that people shouldn't be applying for bail. But people don't understand that we are governed by a constitution in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah.
Right? And our constitution gives us the right.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
one of those such rights is to apply for bail.
Yes.
Whether it's yes or not, that is a constitutional right.
Is either you follow the law or you don't follow the law? I don't understand. What is the complaint?
So,
You can't break the law to follow the law, to enforce
Exactly.
the law. So
Right? With all due respect to men like Ralph Gonzalez and these men, right? You all don't subject yourself to the laws of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah.
Right? Our laws stand as itself. We are an independent nation, last time I checked, as well as a republic nation.
yes.
So, as much as I hear what they say, but keep your thoughts to yourself.
All right.
Right?
Thanks a lot.
Not that I will defend them, which is our judges and whatever. But if you come here and you want to talk about that, it's ridiculous. At the end of the day, our citizenry is under attack. Our citizenry are losing their lives. And people like myself, whose homes have been invaded, we have a right to defend ourselves as well.
Correct.
I can tell you of myself and many others who have applied for firearms, and we're still waiting. We are still waiting. But yet you want to tell us that we have to understand that firearms is a issue in this country. It's not legal firearms, it's illegal firearms, sir. But nonetheless, keep up the fight, gentlemen. You know I'm always locked on, and I'm always there for you.
All right.
Thank
thanks
you
a
very
lot.
much, Brian.
Archie, you could play that clip. I mean, I know that we have different political persuasions, but facts is facts, right?
Facts is facts.
Facts is facts. Archie, play that clip. Facts, not fiction.
I'm here in Florida. So just to clarify, this here is what can be considered an automatic weapon or an assault weapon. This Trinidad to be is what is illegal. It is known as a prohibited item under Chapter 16 of the Firearms Act. So this type of weapon can be changed from semi-automatic to automatic. When it changes from semi-automatic to automatic, you can then fire over 600 to 700 rounds in 1 minute, which is 35 rounds in 3 seconds when you keep your finger on the trigger. Weapon. That is what makes this known as an assault weapon. That is why it is a dangerous weapon. It is known as a prohibited weapon. Not one of these have ever been sold in Trinidad and Tobago. The customs know this, the firearm dealers know this, the FBI department in Trinidad and Tobago knows this. So how many citizens have used this type of assault weapons to kill anyone in Trinidad and Tobago? Zero. 8,000 witnesses in the last 20 years. None have ever been killed by civilians being issued with this. So just to clarify, automatic weapons / assault weapons have never been issued. So when it is people in Hyatt clapping like train seals in Orlando, when it is that the Prime Minister said he was going to ban assault weapons, he was banning something that was already banned.
Right. Bring me back. Now, as I said, we might have political views, but that is facts, right? F-A-C-T-S, facts, right? So the question is, why would you want to focus on banning assault rifles when they're already illegal in Trinidad and Tobago? An assault rifle is considered that you could do mass assault. It means you hold on the trigger and you spray.
Yeah, automatic.
Automatic. That is what it is. Now, if you don't, here's the problem, right? You know, there's a famous movie, they say, well, you can't really fight gang. You can't fight criminal if you don't know criminal. How are you going to fight guns and you clearly don't have no idea about guns?
Because as we wrap up, that is when you have the cart pulling the horse.
Yes.
That is all that going on here, you know.
Yeah.
We have the cart pulling
And
the
you
horse.
had this man who was there, and I could tell you, and you could go back on my Facebook. I have criticized that man severely.
I myself
when he has
also.
been commissioner of police.
But facts is facts.
As a lawyer, I thought he went a little too far with certain things and whatever. But all that to the side, this man knows what he's talking about, and he understands how to fight crime, and he understands about weapons and how to keep them out of people's hands. Right? But you intervene in a whole process just to keep that man out. that now he has to come and lecture you on the foolishness you're talking.
You see, it's the same thing with building a case against the DPP, you know. Let me tell you something.
Yes.
Anytime these politicians believe that they are vulnerable and they can become one of the statistics to face the court, they will mash up the earth that you're standing on just in order to save themselves. And Gary Griffith, like you, I have criticized some of his ideology.
Yes.
I have criticized some of his philosophy. But I just always say Gary Griffith was one of the better commissioner in this country.
Of course.
That's one. Two, I have been critical of Gaspard at times.
Yes.
And after listening Gaspard a couple of days ago, listening the sentiment of the Chief Justice prior to listening to Gaspard, listening to Rowley prior listening to the Chief Justice, I think I understand what is happening in this country, and that is a danger when we the people, when we the citizenry allow the political directorate to influence all the independent institutions without standing up. We'll have to come back and deal with that procurement legislation, because that is a very serious point that you raised earlier on.
We have to look at it because, I mean, obviously we know that it was gutted to some extent, and therefore it's not going to solve all the problems. But I am glad that it is now proclaimed. What I am worried about is that it is proclaimed, but you have no chairman, so there's going to be a period of abeyance. And now you have a compromised president, in my view, with all due respect to her. She is a political stooge. I don't know how else to put it. She's a political appointee. Let me put it more decently, right? In my view, she's not going to be neutral. She cannot help the bias. And she's going to make appointments that are going to favor the PNM. And the entire point of a procurement act, put it like this: the opposition don't give anybody government contracts. It is the government that are going to be awarding contracts.
Yep.
The corruption is going to come from government expenditure on contracts going towards things like kickbacks, conspiracy, inflation of contract prices, preferential award of tenders, awarding party finances tenders, all them things, right? You need an independent person there to fight that. You can't have a political appointee appointing somebody and expect that person to be independent. It's not going to happen. It is simply not going to happen, and I really, really hope that the situation will change for the better. I mean, we don't know.
Let's take this one before we wrap up. Welcome, caller.
Good afternoon.
Good day, good day.
I was just wondering, is this the Victor Roberts program?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, am I live?
Yes, yes.
Hello?
Yes, we live.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good day.
Victor. Hi, Mr. Tacklalsingh, and also, I want to say, what a very good informative program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
Victor know me, eh? I'm a retired police officer from Trinidad. And, I travel abroad and things and very much, but I reside in the U.S. now. Gentlemen, from what I understand with that symposium yesterday, I get to understand, yesterday or the day before, with the 2 days they have. You know, with that symposium, with all, and listen, the symposium is about security. And you know, with all the big, from what I understand, there are 15 CARICOM leaders, only 6 attended. Only 6 attended. And do you know, from what I understand, that with 6 prime ministers of the Caribbean, do you know there was no vetting and no security for any attendees into that symposium?
Wow.
So a man can just walk in with an AR on the coat, attack or something, and do what you have to do. So the question begs to understand this from the beginning. You have a security symposium. You have heads of state of CARICOM, and nobody was checking to see who are the attendees coming in there, or whether they're armed, they're not armed, whatever the case might be. But the problem I talk, the situation I'm getting to, or the topic I'm getting to, is that nobody was doing scanning or security check for any attendees into that symposium. And that is what it is all about. So it just goes to show you how dumb and stupid these people are. It's simple like that. You have a big security symposium and nobody got in the gate. Basically, that's it. I mean, does it make sense? Listen, guys, gentlemen, listen. That was just a big brouhaha to read some orders, to read some train, and drink some champagne and things. And while all that going on, the little black boys and them and the colored boys and them getting killed all over the place.
Correct.
Mr. Tacklalsingh, I want to say this. I'm not, but I'm not going to go into here. I mean, I used to work flying squad in those days, and we used to go after the criminals. There was a certain individual in Woodbrook. I held with cocaine and U.S. money, and also with the traveler's check in those days. Traveler's check. Recently I was going through a little, reading of the, post in Trinidad. And that gentleman name came up again?
Wow.
So after 40 years, this gentleman name came up on Woodbrook, And let me tell you what happened. On that episode, I could tell, I have the evidence to prove it. On that occasion, when I wanted to go after certain hierarchies again, now it became an Interpol investigation because it had foreign exchange and it had traveler's check. So one Mr. Carlos Matura, who was in charge of Interpol in Trinidad, he ended up taking over the case and everything.
Right.
So then I asked certain officers in CID in Port of Spain, and it had some corrupted one in those days, and I could call the name but not on the phone. Listen, certain officer, I tell you, a certain officer, I say, listen, so and so and so, we have information. Let's get a search warrant and go and bust down to a house in Glasgow. You know what that senior officer tell me? He said, officer, do you want to go black your shell and work tomorrow? Mr. Tacklalsingh, Mr. Victor, listen, gentlemen, I could go on long. I could say, I'm on a thing. It's crazy. And I could tell her one thing, and before I leave.
Yeah.
You see the death of the former Attorney General, Mr. Selwyn Richardson. If ever I have a little say or I have a little authority in Trinidad, I will take the government money, that's the taxpayers' money, and find out who did that assassination on Selwyn Richardson. And I will tell you why. That gentleman, I don't care what people say, I used to guard him personally, and I know the man personally. The man have a heart of a giant. Trust me on that one. I actually guard the man.
Yeah.
The Federation Park I'm talking about. Them other PNM ministers and all them other ministers, when you guard in the gate and they come with the car, they may come out of the car to open the gate, They may so high and pompous. They will blow the horn until the officer, he might be in the back of the MP house, he have to come all the way around and go and open the gate. And they go blow the horn, Not Selwyn Richardson. Selwyn Richardson will come out and open the gate for himself.
All right, cool.
When you walk in the 2-3 in the morning, Selwyn Richardson is the only man just to come down with a cup of coffee and a sandwich with you. Have a good one, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you for that insight. Yeah.
So before we wrap up, Kyle have the honor to.
We had a good show. I think what we have to do is plan that activity that we have coming up. As I said, it will be done lawfully.
Yeah.
Permission will go in on Monday, and then we can start advertising and giving details. And I think all citizens should be encouraged to come out, say what they have to say, and demonstrate against what is really a serious problem in our country that needs to be dealt with, right? I'll be coming on the show more often as I think
go forward.
We try to come on
Take it now,
once a week
yeah.
as we go into that activity.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We could
Welcome, caller.
build up. Yeah.
Yeah. Good night, Mr. Victor. Good night.
Yes, sir. Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Yeah, I am the person who called last month concerning the public assistance grant that we did not get in March month. And when we went back this month, they're saying that, we were supposed to get it this month, the beginning of this month. But when we go this month, they tell us that they did not rectify the problem as yet. And they don't know when they will rectify the problem. Whenever they will rectify the problem, if they rectify it, then we're going to get the grant. We don't know what is the position with that. Could you all...
This is what public assistance or public or disability?
Public assistance.
And you've applied and you met the criteria?
No. I am a recipient of public assistance.
Right.
March month, it did not come in.
And it's not coming for what? Months?
It did not come in for March month, and we was expected to get both months, April and March, together.
And there's nothing?
March month.
Is it that you alone are affected? Is it that you are alone, or there are several people who are affected?
There was several people.
All right.
Who was affected.
You could give Archie a number off air. Archie, just take that number off air for me. All right, no problem. Yeah. I will give you a message.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'll see if I can assist you. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Welcome.
Yeah. All right. So, what do you do? Well, I think both Victor and I want to wish the leader happy birthday of the United National Congress and the leader of the opposition. I think it's her birthday today. Many more. 23rd birthday, as Archie says. Many more health and strength to you. And we continue to look forward to many great things from you.
Thank you. So that's it for us today. We will be back on Tuesday. I think if Kyle is available, I will ask him to come Tuesday. Tuesday we'll do the first announcement of that activity that is planned. We'll give you all the details and so on.
Yes.
And this is your opportunity. This will be your time. This will be whatever it will be. So we want to thank you. Of course, I know we went a bit over because we kind of like to wrap up around 8 and so on. But as time goes on, this may happen. And please, we appreciate you allowing us to intrude your home for this extra time. And be sure to tune in on Tuesday. We'll be back. God bless. And I beg you, please be as safe as you can. We out.
شكرا لها والحمد لله شكرا لها والحمد لله شكرا لها والحمد لله شكرا لله والحمد لله नजरों से नजरें मिली तो जन्नत से महकी फिजाएं लब ने लब छू लिया तो आसमां से बरसी दुआएं ऐसे अपनी मोहब्बत, ऐसे रूह इबारत, हम पे महरबानो जहां। शुक्रन अल्लाह वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, शुक्रन अल्लाह वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, शुक्रन अल्लाह वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, शुक्रन अल्लाह वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह। Thank you God for the love I have. तेरी बाहों में जिस्म खिल गया, तेरी सांसों में चैन मिल गया, कैसे रहे अब हम जुदा। ओहो तेरे पास हम इतने हुए, तेरे काबू अपने हुए, ऐसे रहे अब हम फिदा। ऐसे उसकी इनायत मिट गई हर शिकायत, हम पे महरबानो जहां। शुक्रन अल्लाह वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, शुक्रन अल्लाह वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, शुक्रन अल्लाह वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, शुक्रन अल्लाह वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह। तेरे साये मिली हर खुशी, तेरी मर्जी मेरी जिंदगी, ले चल तो चाहे जहां। मेरी आंखों में नजर तेरे है, मेरे शाम सहर तेरे है, तू जो नहीं तो मैं कहाँ। खिल गई मेरी किस्मत पाके तेरी ही चाहत, हम पे महरबानो जहां। शुक्रन अल्लाह वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, शुक्रन अल्लाह वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, शुक्रन अल्लाह वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, शुक्रन अल्लाह वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, शुक्रन अल्लाह शुक्रन अल्लाह वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, शुक्रन अल्लाह वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, शुक्रन अल्लाह